Hi, my name is Elliot. I've spent the last 12 years working at a large financial services firm, and I'm making this video because the lack of financial literacy in this country is appalling. This is no one's fault. The public school system is designed to keep this information from students, and the corporations are happy with that because they can take more money from people. TIAA, which is another large financial services firm, puts out a financial literacy test that less than 1 in 10 people can get completely right. I'm going to walk you through this test, show you how I think about answering the questions, and hopefully you come away from this having learned something. If you want to take the test beforehand, I've left a link in the description. And if at any point you have a question, leave a comment and I'll get back to you. Let's dive right in. The PFIN 8 Index, a concise measure of financial literacy. You can read through this on your own. Some of the statistics down here that I mentioned before. The full test is 28 questions. We don't have time for 28 today. I can maybe do that in a separate video. I want to start with the first 8, and that is on the next page down here. If you scroll all the way to the bottom, the third page, or actually the bottom of the second page, is the answer key. So, I don't want to spoil it for yourself. So let's just zoom all the way in here and start with question 1. So Mark's salary has increased over the past 2 years. What would be a plausible reason, be a likely reason for this? The numbers of workers that have Mark's skills increased where he lives and works. So there are more workers that have the same skills as Mark competing for the same job where he lives and works. B, new technology has reduced the demand for workers with Mark's skills. C, Mark completed several training courses at a local college. And D, don't know. I'm going to give you a quick tip here. Don't know is not the correct answer to any of these questions. So don't answer don't know. Let's start with number 1. So the number of workers with Mark's skills increased where he lives and works. If I have a job and I have 10 other people that are competing for my job, and I ask for a salary raise from my boss, I am much less likely to get that salary increase if they could just hire another person that has the same skills for less money or the same amount of money that I'm currently making. So conversely, think about the other way. If there is no one else that has the skills that Mark has or that I have in this example, that gives me additional leverage with my boss to ask for a salary increase, because if he says no, if my boss says no, I could just leave and someone else would pay me more. So the answer is not A. So much to say. B, new technology reduced the demand for workers with Mark's skills. So again, if a new technology comes out, AI, think about AI, right? And the AI can do the same job that Mark is doing. It has the same skills. And that technology makes it cheaper for the company to get that job done. Then Mark does not have leverage to ask for a salary increase. Conversely, if you think about the other way, new technology increased the demand for workers with Mark's skills. If Mark is more in demand from not only the company that he currently works for, but other potential companies who would be bidding for his services, he would be more likely to take the higher salary option. That's just a fact. Nobody is going to take less money or the same money if opportunities exist for more money on the table. And that leaves C, Mark completed several training courses at a local college. If Mark does his job every day, comes in, He wants to do additional work, but he is required to take training courses in order to increase his skill level to make himself more attractive as an employee to his company. Then that is going to increase his leverage when he goes to his boss to ask for a salary increase. So if you think about the question in the context of the answers that you are given, A would not be right because more workers would be competing with Mark for the same job with the same skills. Very unlikely to get a salary increase as a result of that. New technology reduces the demand for workers with Mark's skills. If there's new technology that exists that makes it easier for the company to get the same job that Mark is doing done, it's very unlikely he's going to get a salary increase. But if he completes training courses and increases his skill level and increases his attractiveness to his employer, then there's a good chance he's going to get a salary increase. The question is just asking for a likely reason for a salary increase. The most likely reason would be C. So let's just write that down. Laptop decides not to work. Okay. 2, a household budget cannot be used for which of the following? So a household budget, I'm going to start tracking every single purchase that I make. I know how much I spend in rent or mortgage. I know how much I spend on groceries. I know how much I spend going out to the movies or to dinner with friends. And I'm going to track each of those items as I pay for them every month. The idea being that those are outflows. That's money that I am spending that is going out of my account every month. What's coming into my account every month is my paycheck. And ideally, you want to have more money coming in to your bank account than what is going out so that your disposable income increases over time. What you choose to do with that disposable income, like buying financial assets, like stocks, like bonds, mutual funds, ETFs, whatever you decide to buy in order to invest that money for future growth is up to you. Put that aside for now. The question is asking, what of these, A, B, or C, remember D is not the answer, cannot be used when tracking a household budget? I'm going to skip the first one for now and come back to it. B, to plan for necessary household expenses. That's exactly what a budget is for. I explained it at the beginning. This is not the answer. If the question was a household budget can be used for which of the following, B would be a perfect answer. So because the question is flipped, we can eliminate B from what would be the correct answer. So right now we know it's not B, it's not D. C, to plan household discretionary spending. I explained this at the beginning as well. What you have left over, hopefully at the end of the month, once you do your budget, is disposable income. Discretionary, meaning it is up to you what you spend it on. You don't have to spend it on credit card payments or rent or Klarna or whatever whoever you owe money to. So yes, a household budget is a is a perfect use for planning household discretionary spending. It says that a household budget could be used to track household financial assets. So financial assets are the equity you have in your house, the stocks that you own. You could buy collectibles, Pokemon cards, or sports cards that are graded by PSA and track their value based off of eBay or whatever website you use to track the value of these things. But that's an investment. That is a financial asset that you have and is not part of a budget, which is purely what is coming in to your accounts, paychecks, getting paid for odd jobs here and there, and what's going out from your accounts, which is expenses, whether that is fixed every month, mortgage, rent, or variable, going out to eat, paying for a gym membership, so on and so forth. So we're gonna say that the answer to this question is A, because it cannot, again, the question asks what you cannot use a household budget for. Question 3. Akiko has $1,000 in savings that earns a 2% rate of return over the course of the year. The inflation rate during the year is 3%. Which statement is true? She can afford to buy fewer things at the end of the year. She can afford to buy more things at the end of the year. And it's not clear whether she can afford to buy more things or fewer things at the end of the year, or don't know. It's not don't know. We know this. And I'll tell you why we know this. At the beginning of the year, she has $1,000. She really wants a new pair of shoes. Great. Shoes are worth $100. At the beginning of the year, she can buy 10 pairs of shoes. At the end of the year, how much money is she going to have? Well, she's making a 2% rate of return. So 2% is $20. I can show you how I got that. Multiply her savings times 1 plus the rate of return, which is 2%. 2 divided by 100. Should not be represented in percent. She got $1,020 at the end of the year. However, the inflation rate is 3%. Inflation represents the increase in the cost of something. Usually it's a basket of goods like groceries or gas or shoes. But in this case, we'll just talk about the shoes. So at the end of the year, the shoes are now worth $103. And we can get to that by multiplying the price of the shoes at the beginning of the year times 1.03, representing the rate of inflation, 103. Great. Now, if we do the same equation, dividing how much she has at the end of the year by how much the shoes cost at the end of the year, she can now buy less than 10 pairs of shoes. She can't fully buy 10 pairs of shoes. Therefore, the answer is A. She can afford to buy fewer things at the end of the year. Great. We're off to a great start. Question 4. Which statement about investing is correct? Investing in the stock of a single company is typically safer than investing in a mutual fund that holds shares of many companies in multiple industries. Okay. Investing in a mutual fund that holds shares of many companies in multiple industries is typically safer than investing in the stock of a single company. Or investing in the stock of a single company and investing in a mutual fund that holds shares of many companies in multiple industries are typically equally safe. Let's look at SpaceX. And let's just look at their stock price since IPO. Started out at 154, it IPO'd at 155, got up to 170 within like 5 days. So that's a 10% increase in 5 days. It's now come down to about 120 from 170, which from 170 is high 28%, call it, decrease from its peak. You can see here down 21% in the last month. That's very volatile. Now, not all stocks are volatile. However, if you look at the same graph for SPY, which is the Spider S&P 500 ETF Trust, the S&P 500 representing the stock value of the 500 most valuable companies in the US, you can see that the percentage change over the last month is much, much lower. And the reason for this is you eliminate, in investing in an ETF like Spider, like SPY, you eliminate the idiosyncratic or single stock risk that if one company goes bankrupt, you are screwed. You lose your whole investment. However, if you invest in an ETF and one of the 500 companies goes bankrupt, you still have 499 other companies worth of value in your investment. So the question is asking, which is a safer investment? Investing in a single stock or investing in the S&P 500 as a whole? The answer is the S&P 500, or in this answer, or in this question, the mutual fund, which is similar to an ETF. I can get into that if people want to know the difference, but both allow you to hold shares of many companies across multiple industries at once. So which statement about investing is correct? Investing in the stock of a single company is typically safer? No, it is definitely not typically safer. The answer here is B. Investing in a mutual fund that gives you diversification, which is a key phrase in investing, is typically safer than investing in the stock of a single company. So we're going to go ahead and lock in B. And we're going to move into the second half of the test. So Jose owes $1,000 on a loan that has an interest rate of 20% per year compounded annually. If he makes no payments on the loan at this interest rate, how many years will it take for the amount that he owes to double? Compounding interest is a tricky topic for folks that are new to all of this to learn. So I'm going to try and walk you through it simply. If I start the year with $1,000, you can think about it not as an interest rate on a loan. You can also think about it as the rate of return on an investment. So if I start off with $1,000, and in this previous example, the rate of return was 2%, but now it's going to be 20% because that is the interest rate. The interest rate being the amount of additional money that you, as a borrower of money, have to pay whoever is lending it to you. If it's a bank, if it's some sort of financial institution that is charging you to borrow this money, if you don't make any payments, at the end of the year, you now owe $1,200 because that 20% of your initial loan is charged to you as interest. So this is beginning of year 0. At the beginning, well, actually, no, that's the beginning of year 1. The 0 stuff doesn't work in this example. Year from today, because again, in the question, it says Jose is not making any payments on the loan at all. Bold strategy. But at the beginning of next year, he's not going to owe the $1,000. He's actually going to owe $1,200. The interest rate does not change. The interest rate is still 20%. So you would multiply the 1,200 by 1.2 and get 1,440. So now you owe $1,440 on that same loan because you haven't made any payments at the beginning of year 3. We're just going to keep doing the same thing. So at the end of year 3, you now owe, Jose now owns $1,728 on that same $1,000 loan because he hasn't made any payments. 20% interest rate is ridiculous too, but I know that is the interest rate on a lot of credit cards, which is why credit cards are extremely predatory. People that don't understand how interest rates work think that they can just make the minimum payment. And what that ends up doing is lengthening the timeline with which they have to pay back the loan, keeping someone in this horrific cycle of debt for the rest of their lives, basically, which is really sad. So at the beginning of year 4, Jose owes $1,728. And at the end of year 4, that $1,000 loan is now worth over $2,000, over double what it was at the beginning. So the answer to the question is A, less than 5 years. It took 4 years. Number 6, let's find out about Catherine. Catherine is a single 25-year-old worker who is in good health. Great, good for Catherine. What type of insurance coverage is she most likely to need in the near term? Near term, next 6 months, next year. Life insurance. Life insurance is paid out upon someone's death to their dependents. So if you have kids or you have a spouse, and if they don't have the ability to make money for themselves, you want to be able to provide them with some money if something happens to you and you unfortunately pass away. Catherine is not likely to need life insurance in the near term. She's single and she's young and she's in good health. B, disability insurance. If you are injured and can no longer work, you may need disability insurance, or you may be interested in disability insurance that you pay a small amount every month. So that if in the event of a catastrophic accident or injury, you would receive a payout to basically keep your finances afloat while you are recovering. In the near term, she could need disability insurance. I don't know. But we have to look at these answers in the context of the question. So let's skip to C. Key word here, key phrase is long term. Which of the type of insurance coverage is she most likely to need in the near term? Long-term care, meaning being admitted into a nursing home or some sort of assisted living facility that typically sees older folks, baby boomers, retirees, not single 25-year-old workers who are in good health. So, and it's not D. Life insurance, she doesn't have any dependents, so that's unlikely. Long-term care insurance, she's young, she's in good health, unlikely, I would say. Disability insurance, sure, she could work a somewhat dangerous job. She could work a desk job and potentially get into some sort of freak accident that prevents her from being able to work. So the most likely need for Catherine in the near term is B, disability insurance. Almost done. Two more. Let's crack through it. So question 7, lottery A pays a prize of $200. The chance of winning is 5%. Lottery B pays a prize of $90,000 and the chance of winning is 0.01%. Expected winnings are greater in which of the lotteries? A, B, equal, don't know. Expected winnings can be calculated by multiplying the prize by the chance of winning. That might not be intuitive to folks, and I understand that. If we take an example of a lottery in which there is an equal prize, but I tell you in one of the lotteries, there are 100 people playing. And in another lottery, there's only 2 people playing, you and someone else. Which would you be more likely to sign up for? Obviously, the one that has only 2 people. And the reason is because in this example, you would have a 50% chance of winning. It's either you or somebody else. It's a coin flip. Here, you only have a 1% chance. So now if we extrapolate this, we use this question, even though $90,000 is a much higher prize, your percentage chance of winning is much, much lower. 0.01% in this example would be like if there were 1,000 people playing. Actually, no, it's like 10,000 people. Because if you do 1 divided by 10,000 and you express it as a percent, 0.01%. Whereas 5%, that means there's only 20 people playing. I do 1 divided by 20, 5%. Great. But because the prize amounts are different, this is where I think people would get a little bit tripped up. So let's right size this for the question with the correct chances here. Multiply the prize value by the percentage chance that you have to win. And we'll do the same thing for this one. Your expected winnings for lottery A would be $9. Your expected winnings for lottery B would be $10. And I flipped this. So good job, me. Okay, so it's actually backwards. This is B, this is A. So the chance of winning is higher in lottery A, but even though the prize is lower, your expected winnings are greater in lottery A. We're going with A. And then question 8, which of the following appears to be inappropriate investment advice for the respective individual? A stock index fund to a 30-year-old saving for retirement who has a pretty long investment horizon and therefore a higher appetite to potential volatility in the market. A bond fund to a 60-year-old worker for some of her retirement savings. Pretty appropriate, I would say, because bonds generally are less volatile than stocks because they pay what's called a fixed income, a fixed coupon, a fixed interest rate on those investments that is guaranteed unless the company goes bankrupt. And if a company goes bankrupt and you have stock of that company, that stock goes to zero. But for a bond, you are getting a fixed coupon payment paid out every 6 months generally, and then you receive your entire investment back at the end of your at the maturity of that bond, which is called your principal. A bond fund as investment advice to a 60-year-old for some retirement savings is probably a good thing because they have a much shorter investment time horizon and therefore don't want to be exposed to too many risks in their investment going poof to zero, which is why answer C, stock fund that invests in small startup businesses to a 75-year-old retiree, someone that does not have any appetite to losing the money that they've saved over the course of their career. This is pretty inappropriate advice. This seems fairly intuitive to me. Let me know how I could have explained this one better based on your understanding. That was just my first stab at it. I'm happy to go back and check again. But for here, what we're going to do is we're going to say question A, the answer is C, because it's not very appropriate advice. And so now what we'll do, take a look at the answers. And you can see the percentage of US adults who got it right this year. So CAA, BABAC. CAA, BABAC. Okay, so we got 100% right, which is the intent of the video. But let me know how many questions you got right. If you got all 8, congratulations. We should be trying to share more financial literacy with others so that they don't make mistakes that end up costing them a lot of money for the rest of their lives, putting them in some sort of debt trap that prevents them from ever saving money and ever getting to financial independence, ever getting to retirement. The country is in nearly $40 trillion worth of debt. Households in this country are in a significant amount of credit card debt, car payments, mortgages, by and large, don't budget. So they don't really track how much is going out from their accounts every month versus how much is coming in. If you want any help with that, let me know. More than happy to help. If you have any questions, again, put them in the comments. And thanks for watching and have a great rest of your day. Goodbye.